Now that market is coming to an end, and we've known about that for quite some time. I'm expecting to see a major crash in about a year. And it's interesting that the new financial system, we're going to be running two financial systems together. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. We're going to have two of them running in tandem for the next year. And then once we move to the new financial system, the current market, which is based in fiat money, is going, because we're going to have a new, I don't know what it's called yet, a new currency called, they're calling it sort of a rainbow treasury and a rainbow currency. That'll have some other name, but it will be linked back to gold. And so we're going to have these two and actually have some value to it. So the new market will start out of that, and the fiat market will come down because there won't be any more money in it as we move out of fiat and go to this new currency.
New studies show that by the time people reach their middle ages, the body often produces less than half of the collagen it did in their youth. Collagen is the main building block in our skin, making up 70 to 80% of it. This is why we get sagging skin and wrinkles as we age. If you want to look younger, you must supplement collagen, which will improve your skin's elasticity, make it smoother, more plump, and more youthful looking. That's why Ageless Multi-Collagen provides 5 key types of collagen you need from 4 different sources, essential to optimally support an array of full-body benefits. No odor, no taste, no clumping, unlike other collagen supplements.
This is why I recommend Health with Adapt2030.com Ageless Multi-Collagen, a quick way for youthful appearance. Use the link in the description box below for 51% off my favorite Ageless Multi-Collagen. And now on with the video.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I have with me Peter Temple. We talked a couple of years ago about cycles and things repeating in time and history. Peter runs worldcyclesinstitute.com. And, I'm a fan of cycles. I understand how things move through the heavens, repeating vibrational frequencies depending on areas of space. There's so many things within us, the crust of the earth, the sun, the universe itself, our solar system, the galaxy. These cycles repeat. And if you can pinpoint cycles of civilization collapse, fall, ruin, apex, and then also the economies that move in tandem with that. And it seems to be the shift that we're in right now is nothing more than a repeat of something that had happened previously, and previously before that, and previously before that. So coming in today's technological world, we're going to see a lot of shifts and changes. If you haven't noticed, there's this thing called the Great Reset out there, which is meant to shift every aspect of our lives: finance, living, diet, private carbon allocations, cryptocurrency, blockchain, digital IDs, everything in the works for that at this time, where we are definitely shifting out of an age of different perception and the frequency of life itself moving a little bit faster as we transit through this new Aquarian energy over the next 2,000 years. We've literally just changed an age, and you could even talk about the change of an age in a planetary and star body format as we changed ages December 2019. So we're really getting into this shift, and everybody can feel it. So I just wanted to bring Peter on today because I feel that he has so much depth of knowledge of repeating cycles, economy, civilization, and tech that we're rolling through once again. And we're right at this precipice. Seems like we're on the backside of if you're going to talk about, fourth turning or other terms for cycles of multi-generations that roll over into a decline phase. We're kind of there now too. So Peter, I appreciate you coming on, and everybody out there listening. This is going to be a little economic forecast, some things coming up in the next few weeks, and just generally how our lives are going to be shifting over the next couple of years with tech and freedoms, etc. So Peter, thanks for joining me. The floor is yours.
Okay, well, David, it's really great to be here. And I can't tell you how much I enjoy talking to you because it's somebody that knows what I'm talking about. And
Yeah.
you and I connect on that basics, both climate and on cycles. And so cycles is sort of my world. But there has been something going on, as you've been alluding to, for the past 5 years or so, and even before that. And really, the big change started with JFK's demise, his assassination in 1963. And I can remember the time that I was in New York at that time and the actual day it happened. And most people can remember when that happened. So this is a big, big story. And I'm just going to touch on just some elements of it and try and take you through as much as I can. And I thought I would start with where we've talked about before. And this is really a look at climate cycles over 2,000 years. And does my pointer show up here on
Yeah, it
this?
sure does. And this is one of my
Okay.
favorite charts too, because this was from the GISP2 Ice Core Data Series, which is
It
supposedly
is.
the gold standard for Earth's temperatures. And you're seeing all these rises and falls, and we're still debating whether, like, what caused the rise and falls of these temperatures? Forget the civilizations. Each of those red arrows, I mean, it wasn't CO2 back then, I assure you.
1,030 years. No, it is just a natural phenomenon. And I always kind of equate it with electromagnetic waves and changes based on the solar system and even beyond that. So we are a very small little rock in terms of where we are and in the earth compared to the bigger picture, and our climate just changes on a regular basis. So you're seeing that we have a high here. This is a temperature line that you're seeing, and it just goes up and down like a sine wave, kind of a rough sine wave, but you can kind of see that separated by about 1,030 years here. And each one, and there are subcycles. That's a major cycle. Here's where we are now at the top of a warm cycle, which is not as warm as it has been previously. Everybody goes a little rangy about how the temperature is high and it's going to keep on going. Well, no, it's just a natural phenomenon, and the temperature goes up and down, and rainfall tends to go with it. So we have wet and dry periods. Sorry, wet and warm periods, which are all of these periods where we go up. The rainfall tends to follow temperature, and then we come back down again, and it becomes dry and cold. And so you can see that each time this happens, you start to get, and this is the American empire here, you start to get empires that rise and fall. So ancient Egypt, and then we went into Greece and Rome and the Mayan civilization here, and they all fall apart once it gets colder and drier, and food gets difficult to come by because of that, the growing season. And I'm sure David has talked all about this on a regular basis with a lot of his video. I talked last time we were together about Dr. Raymond Wheeler, and that is another source, because what he did was went through tree rings, and he came up with exactly the same results as we got from the GISP2 data, which was ice cores. So you've got two sources here that say the same thing, so that if any, and I get attacked over this all the time, but these are two sources that give you all of this data and it says the same thing. And so that makes it a lot more real. And what he came up with 100 years ago was at the top of this cycle, he said the current convulsion excuse me, is comparable to the birth of Christianity in the 1st century and to the birth of the modern nation as a feudal principality in the 9th and 10th centuries. So there's another high in terms of climate. All of these reorganizations of society were marked by spurts in the evolution of democratic institutions. And so when we start to go down, let's go back to, I'll add in a little bit more information here. When we start to go downhill on these cycles, when it gets colder and drier, that's when we get more democracy. And when we go to the high end and we get to the top of the cycles, we have tyranny. And that's the sort of thing we have now. And you're seeing that we've gone through this tyrannical situation, and they really started back in Sumer sometime around 600 BC, somewhere in this area. And I have to do a little bit of research where they really got the power. And then, of course, we went through all these ups and downs. This was the top of Rome, which came down, and you get civil wars and revolutions when we come on the downside, when it gets colder and drier. And this has gone on throughout history. And then you've got, of course, the Maunder minimum down in this area here, and that was right sort of down at the bottom here. We've got Britain and the English Empire. We've got the 13 colonies and the discovery of the United States. And then we have got international wars on the rise here, and which are not natural, by the way. And I've got the little thing of the internet here. It's interesting what happens on the rise here in the English Empire. We had the printing press. And so when you get people able to communicate and get all this information coming out, things start to change. And so we're seeing this great awakening right now, and they had great awakenings throughout history. And we always have palace intrigue at the top, where, you know, you can think about Rome at the top here, where we had Julius Caesar, who got assassinated. And so we have this up and down of society and civilizations based on climate. And so you can go to the top of Rome here, and that was at a very high, warm, wet period. And you can see here's Jesus Christ. We have Julius Caesar, who was in power. Here's Caesar right here. And we're talking about sort of 100 BC through to 50. And I put a little 0 in here, but it kind of goes from 1 to 1. And you always have civil wars on the downside when it gets cold and drier. And so, and you have, it's interesting, Colosseum at the top here, which I equate with the football and some of the other sports that we've got, which are played in great big coliseums to keep the populace happy as it gets colder and drier, and the reverse side of the cycle starts. So that's kind of an overview of how these things happen. And it's interesting that, and you see this in the stock market too, because when I am an analyst, sort of a senior analyst on the stock market. When I see the stock market go up, it's really a mathematical representation on the mood of humans in society. We call it the herd, but the planet is then very up and has a really good mood. And when it goes down, it reflects that mood. And people do things, events are created based on how people are feeling, the herd, the world as a whole. It's not the other way around. You don't get events that actually change the market. It's the market that reflects society in terms of its mood, how it's feeling, and people create events at that time. And it's interesting, you get all of these pundits that try and tell you what's happening with the market, and they're always wrong.
Now, Peter, can I jump in for a sec? Can I jump in for a second?
You sure can.
All right. The exuberance or the desperation that would be felt in the markets to drive it north or south. Think about the human resonance field changes in the electromagnetic energy spheres that we're going to be in over these next few years. You know, the sun's stepping down, we're entering a different part of the solar system loop here when we're going through the spiral arm of the galaxy. It's a little bit faster vibration through this area of space. You know, humans are going to be able to perceive things in a little bit different light that they weren't. You know, innate abilities might enhance, you know, audible range, visual range, but the perception of reality itself is going to change in a fashion as the species that's also driving the markets here by the emotion are also going to experience just a different way to perceive reality. You know, and it makes me wonder also with the reset if, you know, these elitist or cabal, and I think we're referring to the same people, continue to try to put a new system and a faster vibration energy wise to keep the power and maintain control through the transition. Okay, they're going to set the start and end date of the transition. And during this whole great reset, it's all going to be tailored toward all the new tech. So when we come out the backside, instead of it being an organic change of government, top-down power structures, et cetera, finance, money, economy, it's going to be all just another scripted play to bring us in. So when the grand solar minimum and all these changes that we're talking about, earth changes wise, cycles wise, they'll still try to put themselves in power at the end of it. So the human resonance field is something that's going to be changing massively during this, you know, shift here. the perception of how you're being controlled on the planet is going to be visible for everybody. So governments aren't going to be able to deal with the current structures to try to hold you down in a heavier energy vibrational state. And when I say that, I'm talking about vibrationally across the solar system, stars local to us. But what happens when it speeds up and the vibration becomes faster and you start to see everything that was built of the darker, lower vibrational energies, you're rising above it and you can see it so cleanly. That's two layers separating, almost like oil and water, the vibration difference between where we are currently in that transition point up into a lighter medium of just everyday being thinking. It's going to vibrate faster. So, with that thing said, being about the markets here, how the human's going to react when that happens, and what will that do to markets, or will it just completely dissolve and we'll start something new? But here's an interesting fact for you: grand solar minimum, safety zone seekers, Republic of Georgia, Mount Ararat, where the Ark had landed. The Republic of Georgia was the first place that had wine cultivation that has been ongoing for more than 8,000 straight years. And they believe that Mount Ararat was that location of the Ark that it had direct correlation to the planting of the vines again in that area. So, you're going beyond myth and legend and history and biblical accounts, etc., into now the cultivated species are backing up what the stories we're talking about. And why was the climate so stable there? It's between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. So there's like a micro zone of very little change happening. If you're able to cultivate wine for 8,000 straight years, the climate needs to stay pretty similar. But I thought I would bring that up since you mentioned some biblical references in there.
But you're right, Elliot, the market, really the thing that I learned, and people get into cycles when they get into the market, that's how most people discover cycles, is that the market moves in a very predictable manner. It has the Fibonacci golden mean all through it. So you can measure each of the waves and they go by Fibonacci, which are really the numbers of nature. And it is controlled by a larger entity, if you want to put it that way, and the solar system around us. And that's really the basis there. Now that market is coming to an end, and we've known about that for quite some time. I'm expecting to see a major crash in about a year. And it's interesting that the new financial system, we're going to be running two financial systems together. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. We're going to have two of them running in tandem for the next year. And then once we move to the new financial system, the current market, which is based in fiat money, is going to, because we're going to have a new, I don't know what it's called yet, a new currency called, they're calling it sort of a rainbow treasury and a rainbow currency. That'll have some other name, but it will be linked back to gold. And so we're going to have these two and actually have some value to it. So the new market will start out of that, and the fiat market will come down because there won't be any more money in it as we move out of fiat and go to this new currency. And that will be gradual over a year. But the market coming down probably won't be gradual. So you get that sort of change even at the top of the Roman Empire. I didn't put that slide up, but they also went into what we would categorize as deflation with their money. And so it's interesting to see how this is all going to change. It has all been predicted for at least 100 years. And even before that, when you learn about cycles, you can predict this, because I've been talking about this revolution coming and civil wars for like 15 years when I learned about it, and certainly the last 5 on my websites. I'm just going to move ahead very quickly and just talk a little bit about the top of the English Empire in the 1600s. And of course, we had Queen Elizabeth, who reigned from 1558 to 1603. And she reigned right at the top when it was, this is the green line is rainfall, and the warm temperatures here were at a high. And so gradually, and 1603 was right about here. So you can see when she died, then we had James I in the Bible, and things started to get very cold and dry Dry happened a little bit later, and we went into the Maunder minimum. So that was the top of the English Empire, and we had a glorious revolution in 1688, which is right about there. And we also had the Bank of England that started in 1694 or 6. I never get that right. I think it's 1694. And that's where the Rothschilds really got their grip on the economy. And so you're starting to see all of these things happen really on schedule to a certain extent. I mean, they change, by the year and that sort of thing, but we ended up with a new financial system. We ended up with some deadly plagues that came in, which we always have health problems as it gets colder and drier. And of course, the Maunder minimum and civil wars and a revolution. I mean, that's what we're expecting this time. We're at the top of a warm, dry cycle. And as we go down the other side, you expect all of this to happen. And so I just wanted to bring that. You may have a comment or two on that, but you can see all the players here. And I have a video of about an hour that goes through this entire thing and on my site that tells you all about golden ages and how this happens over and over. But it's really a repeat of what happened at the top of the Roman Empire. And we are repeating that same history now.
Yeah, and take a look at that. Now, how many of you remember the glorious revolution in 1688? Not widely talked about in any U.S. history books. We have our own set of history in the U.S., but being over here in England at the time, I mean, why did that occur right in Maunder minimum, especially when the onset, when things were starting to fail? And you would see the food prices generally rise about 4x during these times. And I remember there was like 1694, there was an extreme example where food prices had gone up 7x. So something extreme had happened to the barley and the wheat crop at that time. But just on general 4x, we know through history, it's been generally a 4x when we enter these time periods here. So how would you adjust your family's lifestyle, yourself, if your food price quadrupled? I mean, that would put a huge dent into your finances anyway, and it would make you angry enough that you'd probably want to go out and protest, but we can't now because we're locked down. So you see, somebody's trying to front run this cycle by knowing what has happened through the past cycles: population migration, economic collapse, and government overthrow. You can boil those three, the fingerprints of the grand solar minimum. So who was front running the cycle this time to put all this police state in? Because you got to go back to 9/11 and you look at that. And now see, without that event, you couldn't have pre-positioned your assets for the police across the planet to get ready to control the food supply. And then, there's all these other factors mixing in of keeping people separated, stopping the population migration this time. And do we have enough people to even continue maintaining basic societal function? Because with everybody calling out, so much social support that people don't want to go to work. I mean, we barely have enough people to keep things just at minimal, barely, idle levels for our society, let alone increasing.
So right now we're at the extreme, and you can equate that with what happens in the stock market, because the stock market never turns until you get to an extreme. It never goes into a new trend until you get to an extreme. So right now we're sitting at an extreme.
Thinking about different asset classes to revalue the new money system, these carbon allocations and carbon credits and this whole carbon-based trading, that's going to be an asset made out of nothing that'll suddenly have value with it. The ecological value, or they're going to do ecozone value and value the earth as a certain value to back currencies also off of this rainbow, these basket of currencies plus gold. I mean, the changes are going to be vast as they sweep in. And yeah, what is this Gesara? Thanks for bringing that up. I wanted to tickle your brain on the Gesara.
Okay, so Gesara is, think of it as we're at a golden jubilee time. So a golden jubilee means all debt is going away, and that's part of Gesara. And Gesara was, I'm getting way ahead here.
No, you're not, because 70 cycles of 70 would bring us to this larger cycle you're referring to.
No, in my graphics I'm talking about. So if I go over to, we'll never get through this stuff anyway. You just way too much stuff here. So let me just go to my Gesara list.
Because I've had an enormous amount of people ask me about this Gesara, and I'm not really familiar with it as much. And there's some other protocol coming in called, I think, NESARA. So these two.
NESARA is national for the US. Gesara is global. That's the only difference between the two of them. I've got a list of what it includes here.
Please do. I'm really
So-
deeply interested in this.
So this was, well, yeah, you should be, because this is the big deal. So it zeroes out all credit card, mortgage, and other bank debt. So all of your debt is going away, and it will go in the blink of an eye. It abolishes income tax totally. CRA and IRS, you can go to their buildings, they're empty. And they are going to be there to handle, because we're going to a flat tax, a consumption tax, which will be 12 to 17%. I don't know the actual number, but it'll be that on anything you purchase that is new. So for example, new homes will have a tax. Secondhand homes will not. So if you sell a home to somebody, you won't be paying any tax. There won't be any other taxes on your homes, because a lot of us have taxes on homes. That's going away. So it really will just be a consumption tax from here on in. And you're going to see this happen over the next month or so. And you have to prove who you are. You're going to have your birth certificate number, and also your SIN number in Canada, your social security number in the US, and all your tax money that they've stolen from you is going to come back to. And it creates a new rainbow treasury currency backed by gold, silver, and platinum, precious metals. That's going to start up, and you have about a year to transfer your current fiat money that you have and the new money that you get, which you can take in any currency you want from the banks. You have about a year to transfer that over. It's going to be a digital currency, and it will be backed by gold, and you will put it in an online wallet in the quantum system, and it will be completely secure, and you'll be able to send that money anywhere you want to for free in an instant. So that's the new financial system that is coming, and there will be no need for banks anymore, except maybe to exchange some money, but even there's going to be the ability to change it into whatever you want eventually. So that is the system that we're going to, and we're going to have an awful lot more things going along with it. And I'm going to jump to this system. Here's
who's the centralized control inside that quantum system there? Where, okay, so you're putting it into a digital wallet in a centralized space yet again. So who's controlling that centralized depository for all the digital assets locked in wallets?
The quantum computer system. So the idea is we are going to be completely free, and we are going to have complete control over our money, as money was designed to be used in the very beginning, because money belongs to the people, not to governments. And when you get these large governments end up taking control of the money, which is the situation we have now. So that is all part of it. Here's some of the new designed currency. There will be hard dollars as well as crypto, because not everybody's going to use digital currency. So there will be that. There may be coin. There'll be coins in Canada, because we like coins, I guess. But silver and gold and other metals are going to be the basis for the new currency. So it will have value, which our fiat money doesn't. Also, I've done lots of work on this. So we're going into deflation. We're going back to they always say 1950s prices. So all homes will go down, and all assets will go down in price, and our money will actually have value to it. The only reason that prices are so wild on homes and cars and everything is because our money has no value. It's not tied to anything. It's virtually worthless. And everything will then go down. So all assets will go down to about 20% of their current monetary, don't want to say value, but monetary nominal value, if you want to call it that. Is that and this is what this slide has to do with, we've got these 10 days of darkness coming up, and I believe we're going to see the market start to come down on Monday, because we're at that point. And we're going to have about the S&P 500 will go down around 2,500 points. The Dow will go down about 10,000, but sometime in the next few days. And that's one of the starts. It's got to happen for Gasara to come in. But we're also moving back to the Julian calendar. Now, the Julian calendar was, of course, put in place by Julius Caesar. And then Gregory III, Pope Gregory III, replaced it with the Gregorian calendar, which is a satanic calendar, in 1582. And they took 10 days out of the calendar from October the 4th to the 15th down in here, and then just kind of continued on. Now we're going to have to add those 10 days back into the calendar. And they're saying that we may be reliving Halloween twice this year, because that's how soon it's going to happen. October the 5th, they keep saying, because that was the turnover over here, October the 4th, 5th, they keep saying, remember the 5th of November. And I think that's when those 10 days are going to be put in. And that might actually be the start of EBS, which is the Emergency Broadcast System and the Great Awakening. So sometime in the next week, so we're going to have GESARA come in sometime in the near future. It could be Monday. It could be a little bit later on in the week, but sometime this week, and the EBS system will. So this is the big week we're going into. And I don't know whether there's supposedly a big celebration on the November 11th, which is supposed to end everything, but the wild card is those 10 days. So you're asking me exact dates. I don't know exactly when that's coming in. I can tell you, I think it's going to be November the 5th. And we may revert back to before October 31st in terms of our dates. I don't know, but we'll have to see how that all plays out.